the Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.
Welcome to the Instructor Podcast. As always, I am your splendid host, Terry Cook, and today I am not especially delighted to be here, but I am delighted that you have chosen to listen. You may potentially be able to tell I have a bit of a cold, so I'm going to keep this intro a little bit brief, but coming up today, we've got some awesome content for you. I am joined by the delightful PDI and social media whiz Laura Joyce, who shares her thoughts from a PDI perspective on the conference that she attended in Kempton. And we also talk about networking and what instructors can do to promote our profession more. And after that, I am joined by a host of people that I spoke to at the conference in Kempton, including people like Kit Magazine, My Drive Time, and Francis from Driving School TV. Now, just before we dive in, I just want to take a moment to remind you all that wherever you're listening, go and click subscribe. So whenever we drop an episode, including a lot of midweek bonus ones that we do, it'll drop into your feed straight away. So wherever you're listening, Spotify, Apple, whatever, go and click subscribe so you never miss an episode of the Instructor Podcast. But for now, let's get stuck into the show. And we're now joined by the ever delightful Laura Joyce. How are we doing, Laura?
I'm good. How are you?
All the better for seeing your smiley face.
Stop it, Terry.
Yes. Don't feel special. I say that to everyone. All right. So I'm going to kick off with the thing I like to ask all my guests, which I did warn you about, and our expression amused me greatly when I said it. But leader, expert, innovator, or game changer. That's the tagline for the show. So what one of those or ones of those would you afford yourself?
Okay, so I'm just going to go all out and I'm going to pigeonhole myself as a game changer. That's what I feel like that's an appropriate title, and I'm definitely taking that with me wherever I go. So thanks for that, Terry.
Like it. Why game changer?
Because I think that especially in this industry, I think I'm coming at it with a slightly different perspective. And I think because of my background, and just probably because of the person I am, in that I'm an extrovert and I love the sound of my own voice. If I have something to say, I'm going to say it. And I think there's lots of things that I've seen already in the industry that, we could do better and we could change and we could, make it, because I see it as an amazing industry, but I think it's not seen as that. So I feel like my mission now is to make everyone realize what an amazing industry this is and what it can be. Driving instructors, old and new, potential driving instructors, students alike. So I'm just going to go with that.
Like it, although the way you described yourself is a polar opposite to me. I'm an introvert and I don't like the sound of my own voice. So it's always fun recording these and then editing them afterwards. But
let me do all the talking. I'm joking. Don't.
No, it's fine by me. You carry on. I'll have a break. No, I got you on today because we obviously we've spoke over Instagram previously, and I met you at the conference in Kempton, and with you being a PDI at the minute and training to be an instructor, I was really keen to get your thoughts on the conference and that side of it. And then I thought that would be a really great reflection to speak about that. So I want to dive into that in a minute. But just before we do you want to just tell people where you are on your journey at the minute?
Okay, so I have actually done this before. And I failed my part 2 3 times. So that was, I think, back in 2020. And I think that I needed to take a bit of time out because I wasn't sure if it was something I wanted to carry on with. Because, when you take a knock, it's not always easy to kind of come back from it. But I think that I'd already fallen in love with the industry. And so I decided that I don't think I'd be happy not trying to get into it properly again. So I've done my theory, passed my theory first time, thank God. And unfortunately, can't find a part 2 to save my life because there's none to book. But I'm hoping that my part 2 will be done towards autumn. And I'm hoping that if everything goes well, next summer I'll be out on the road teaching your sons and daughters to drive.
It's crossed. I am impressed with that though, because I think that setback that you took, it sounds like you owned that. It sounds like you accepted that obviously that happened, and you probably, upset at the time, but you haven't let it hold you back. You've owned that and come back stronger. How is that sort of your personality? Is that your mentality of coming back stronger?
I think that you have to be reflective. You have to be able to reflect on, you have to be able to kind of acknowledge where you haven't been the best and where you haven't done your best. And I remember having a conversation with someone a couple of years ago, and I said, I have this thing where I almost don't put my all into something, because if I then fail at it and I haven't put my all into it, I can say, well, I didn't really try my hardest. If I put my all into something and still fail, then I'm a failure. And I think that's what I did with the driving last time round. I think I was so scared that I would fail that I didn't try hard enough, or that I let my, not necessarily that I didn't try hard enough, because I tried hard, but I maybe let that feeling get the best of me and just thought, well, I'm going to fail anyway. And then when I had my part two, my second try, I was like, oh, it's in an area I don't know. And I was already making excuses for why I would probably fail. And then the third time I was like, oh, the pressure's just too much. It's my last attempt. I don't feel great. This, and again, you're just making excuses for why you might fail. And if you're making excuses already, the likelihood is that you're going to fail. So I think this time round, and I'm not saying I'm going to pass, because who knows, but I think what I have kind of decided is that for me, how I feel now is, this is the industry I want to be in. So if it takes me 3 years or 5 years or 10 years to actually qualify, all that's going to do is give me the opportunity to get to know more people and gain more knowledge, so that when I do have that ADI badge, it's going to mean so much more.
I can feel this conversation taking a massive detour already, because this is
Sorry.
fascinating for me. No, it's in a good way, because I empathise with that. You know, even where I am now. So I've got my own place, and I've got no one else that's dependent on me. So this business of mine that I'm running now, I've got no excuses anymore. And I
Mm-hmm.
realized that a little while ago. I'm like, crap, if this doesn't work, that's my fault. Whereas before, I could always blame someone else. And, it's that similar thing. And it resonated with what you were saying about not putting your all into something. And I think back to my part three. So I did the old style part three, where the examiner sat next to you and role played. My first one, I was atrocious. Now, yeah, nerves really affected me on the day and stuff, but I was abysmal. And I think part of it was I just didn't really try very hard on the day. I think I just assumed it was going to go wrong, and therefore didn't really try. But for my second one, I'm like, no, you've got to go into this now. And I went in with that different attitude. So I find that fascinating. And I think I'll just ask you one more question around that.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll have your part two coming up at some point. How do you feel about that?
I'm a nervous wreck, because so for me, I already know that I have the ability to coach and talk to people and explain things well, because I've done it in other industries. It's kind of always been something I've been good at. I'm not saying that I'm then going to go and have this amazing part three and just pass straight away. But what I'm saying is that for me, I'm good at telling other people what to do. When it comes to doing it myself, my own head stops me doing it as well as I should and can do. And I think that's what I'm worried about. And I've had this conversation so many times. I listened to a really interesting conference a couple of years ago about the kind of negative impact of practical examination, and how people are drawing back from practical examination, because it is not it's not a kind of an apt environment. And what I mean is, you're not showing people what you're good at. You are ticking some boxes on a day to a stranger when you're really bloody nervous. So, I can drive well. I'm doing a lot of commentary driving at the moment. My trainer Roland he's constantly asking me what I'm doing and how I'm feeling. He mock tests me, he trains me. And in those moments, I'm okay. I'm good. But when it comes to a stranger sitting in a car with all of this expectation riding on me, that is the time that if I'm going to fuck it up, it will be then. And I know that about myself, and I don't think I'm unique in that mindset, but that's why I'm nervous, because what if I fail part one, then there's the wait for the next part. Sorry, if I fail part two, then there's the wait for the next part two, and then do I fail that, and then it's my last one, and then I'm back to where I was 3 years ago. So I think my biggest thing for me is, and that's why I love Harper, who I know that you've worked with a lot, because I need to make sure that I'm not inside my own head before I've got a reason to be. So that's it. Yeah, I'm nervous, in case you didn't get that.
So, well, I kind of want to move over a little bit onto the conference now, as we said, and sort of almost a CPD side. But I am going to grab 5 minutes for you when we stop recording to talk about that, because that's interesting. But I was, as I said at the start, I was interested to get your perspective on the conference as someone that's kind of been in and around the industry before, and but is a fresh face and that PDI perspective, if you like. So I'm going to just ask that very open question. What were your thoughts on the conference?
Okay, so I should preface this by saying that I did not get to a single one of the talks that I wanted to go to. There were lots of people talking. I really wanted to get to your recording. Ray Seagrave. These are all people that I've never kind of interacted with or seen before, but the name of the conference or the name of the talk, sorry, sounded really interesting. So I feel like next time I have to make time to do that, because I probably missed out on some really great stuff, especially given the situation I'm currently in. I love a conference. And the reason why I've always loved this kind of thing is because, and especially in an industry where you often work on your own day in, day out, even if you work for a bigger company, you don't have colleagues as such. And what I love about my experience, especially of the Intelligent Instructor, is that everybody is in the same position, whether they're 5 years deep, 1 year deep, still training, or 20 years deep. Everyone who goes to that conference, because there are lots of people that don't, I think that's a great shame, but everyone who goes to that conference, they're all in the same kind of mindset, and quite often they know one another. So you meet someone who you met last time or that you've spoken to on Instagram, and they introduce you to another person. And Roland, who I went with, he's never been before, and I've only been as an exhibitor. I've never been as a PDI. So there were already people that I was aware of and that I knew and that I'd spoken to previously. And I haven't been for about 18 months, maybe longer. I went in 2021, and I was a bit daunted because it's not really very, in my opinion, very well marketed. I don't know if I can say that, but I'm going to anyway. I don't think that the benefits of going to this kind of thing are very well marketed. And so I knew that I was going to see lots of people that I'd known from kind of my previous experience. And the second I walked in, I walked around the corner and I ran into someone that I knew from before. And they were so happy to see me, and we chatted for ages, and they introduced me to another person who we chatted to for ages. And so in that sense, it's not just the networking, because obviously, I do social media. So I'm always kind of thinking about what collab can we do in this sense, and what will that mean to our viewer, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of a PDI, he's done it before and royally fucked it up, coming back in and everyone being like, no, it's so good that you're doing it again. If you need anything, contact me. If there's any way I can help you, contact me. If you want to come see me and I'll give you a run through. In that sense, you can't put money on how beneficial that is. In terms of the conference itself, looking at it from kind of an external person, as in I've done things like this before, I think there's so many things they could be doing, not just in terms of marketing, but like, I'm just on a run now, by the way. I'm just going to talk. But, for a start, I think there were so many really, really great talks. Lots of them clashed. And I know that there will always be that in any expo or conference you go to. But I think some of them maybe were appealing to the same audience, but on at the same time. Don't ask me for an example because I've completely forgotten. And I think they had talks from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. Now, at Kempton, obviously, it's quite a lot smaller than Coventry, so there weren't loads and loads of stands, but there's lots of people. And I think what a shame that there isn't a dedicated time to actually network. In lots of conferences, they have a breakfast, or they have an hour at lunchtime or 2 hours at lunchtime where you can actually dedicate yourself to going around the stalls. And then you're not sacrificing your time listening to all these amazing people who have got so much knowledge to impart. And you're making connections, and you're meeting people who are like-minded, or who could help you, or, you could help. And I think that for me was like, I came away being like, oh, I just wish there'd been time for me to network and time for me to see talks. And I don't know if that's just me, but that is kind of what I came away thinking.
I don't think it's just you because other people have told me that before. I'm kind of split because I think I agree what you're saying. However, the way my brain works, I kind of like it that way, the way it is now, because I mentioned before being an introvert. If it was like, oh, this time you're going to do this, and this time, that would be too much. That would be overload for my brain. So having it all in one day and going, okay, well, this is here and this is here, and I kind of plan my route through the day. That works for me, but I think I probably agree more with you on like the broad perspective in that if there was a way to do that, but it's one of those things where, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, where you're just cramming as much as we can in the hope to
Yeah.
attract as many people as we can. And
But I do think that one thing I will say about the stands, there were some really good people there, and I got chatting to some really, really good people, like Go Roadie. I think their app's brilliant, and there were some others as well. But I think as well, when I think about it as a new to the so what I think is this. Here we go. Wisdom with Laura. I think that we go to the Intelligent Instructor Expo because we know about the Intelligent Instructor Expo. We know about it because we're that kind of people, and likely we have connections outside of that who are also those kinds of people. However, coming at it from someone who is maybe interested in getting into the industry for a completely different reason, I don't know that I don't know that there's enough knowledge about who these people are and why they're good to listen to and who these stands are run by and why they're good to talk to, unless you already have that knowledge. And I think the expo is a great thing. I think every industry, and most industries do. I work with a commercial bird control company and they have a fucking expo. Like everyone's got an expo, but I think there are so many people out there that would make amazing driving instructors. We need more. What are we actually doing in the context of the Intelligent Instructor Expo to attract people who want to but don't know how, or who have just started but don't know enough, or to come along and go, okay, this because it's benefited me. I've met some amazing people, and I know that I can contact people if I'm having a bit of a nervous moment or if I need some advice. But I only went there because I was an exhibitor once. Otherwise, I wouldn't know this whole world existed.
it's like opening a can of worms.
I know, sorry.
No, the thing is, you're right. You're completely right. I've had some people that come up to me over the weekend and thanked me. And they thanked me because through the Instructor podcast have discovered, I mean, Ray Seagrave was the example this time, but they've discovered Ray Seagrave or Sam Harper or Chris Spencer or whoever. They've discovered them through the Instructor podcast. And I think you're right. If you didn't know who these people were, you're basing your decision on who to go see or whether not to see on the topic rather than the person. And I do think that there's more we can be doing to promote the industry and the people within it. I'm a big believer in that, but let's put you on the spot a little bit because, like you said, social media and marketing, that is kind of your background. What could we be doing?
Talking about it more. We don't talk about it. I follow an awful lot of driving instructors on Instagram because they're my target audience, because that's what I think I'm good at, and what I want to do is help driving instructors with their own social media. And B, it's the industry that I want to get into, so I want to see, I want to soak up all their knowledge. And I was thinking about this quite a lot, and like I see a lot of instructors posting on their social media about how they've come in the top 100, or they're highly recommended, or they've won an award, to a person whose child is about to turn 17, or who loves driving, who has taught their mates how to drive, who's like, I can make a career out of this. They're not already following those people. So they're not going to know about this whole thing. They don't know about it unless they're lucky enough to have friends in the industry or whatever. So I think that we're not talking about it enough. Like there are so many companies that are even at the expo. I did give them all a bit of a grilling. So I was like, your social media is rubbish, but who have amazing products that could really be beneficial to people. Like, I mean, I don't really know what the impression of Pass Me Fast is kind of across the industry, but when they were talking to me, I was like, okay, cool. So I've just moved to a new area in Margate on the East Coast. Having an app like that where I can go on and be like, I'm now a driving instructor, but I haven't got enough work. That could be a really great way to start myself off. there's all the diary management apps, which do so much more. I know that you and Chris were talking about that on the podcast, that do so much more. There's the books, there's the other social media companies, there's Costco, there's so many things that they just have crap social media. And unfortunately, or fortunately for me, social media, it's free marketing, and it's marketing directly into the hand of the people that you want to buy your product. So I know that we're talking about social media users being between the ages of 17 and 34, and 17-year-olds aren't going to be able to become driving instructors. But having a really great plethora of companies and driving instructors and organizations that have got great social media presence, that are funny, that are personable, that sits on your timeline, that you probably will scroll past most of the time, but are there. They are in your subconscious. And when it comes down to choosing a career for yourself, or recommending a career to your children, or teaching your children how to drive, etc., it's all there. It's already there. It's already in your mind. It's already something that you engage with. So you're going to go to those people and you're going to work with them.
It's fascinating. It's that old adage, isn't it? You can have the best product in the world, but it's pointless having the best product in the world if no one knows about it.
Exactly.
One of my biggest flaws as running this instructor podcast is that I've got, I think now I'm on something like 116 hours worth of audio content that the public can listen to. I reuse barely any of that. It's like that's what I should be doing more of, So I know where my flaws are, but it's like you look at something like, it's interesting what you were saying, sorry, about like reaching people. For me, it's like bridging the gap, because a lot of 17-year-olds or parents 17-year-olds are interested in the things we're teaching. Their concern is getting their kid to drive or whatever. And you look at someone like, you're familiar with driving school TV. Now, a lot of instructors complain about driving school TV because they will talk about the way they hold the wheel and stuff like that. And I'm not going to say that I endorse or agree with everything that they put out, but they're making a real positive impact. Because even if there was, say, for every, I'm not saying this is correct, I'm just giving an example. If they put out one negative thing that I disagreed with, they'll be putting out 10 that I agree with. So they're bridging that gap. And it's enlightening people to the world of what it's actually like to be in a car. A lot of the TikTok stuff I see from an instructor point of view, I hate. I really, really dislike it, but it's actually getting learners looking at stuff a different way. So it may not be the way I want them to look at it, but it's still bringing them closer to the way I want to look at it, rather than just that learner perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I used to work with driving school TV, and I think that what they do, what they do is great. And I think the thing is, it's creating the conversation. And we do not do that. I say we, I'm not a we yet, but I'm just going to refer to myself as one. But we don't do that enough. We don't start the conversation. I think, I don't know. I mean, maybe you can answer the question. Is it because we're scared of other people not liking what we're saying, or getting kind of told off by the driving instructors? Is it that? I don't know.
It's a really good question, and I think there's two different answers. Well, there's more than two, obviously, but I think there's two main answers. I think when it comes to instructors talking to instructors, I think when you look at the main or the biggest sort of site for instructors is Facebook. That's where most of us congregate. And there's so much bile and venom on there. People listening to this may well have seen the bit of a, maybe not a pile-on, but a bit of a mini pile-on that happened to me and Chris recently when we released the first expert sessions, and people, who are you to call yourself an expert? And, someone said you should never charge instructors, you should give all this for free, and all this nonsense, and a bit of a pile-on. So when an instructor comes into the industry, for example, and they're seeing that, or with people being attacked, they're less likely then to step out of that comfort zone because they don't want to be attacked. And then the flip side, because I've had experiences as well, when I'm talking about the safety stuff, for example, how learning to drive is, it's about more than just passing a driving test. We'll get abuse online from that, from parents and whatnot. So wherever you go, you're gonna get that abuse and that stick.
That's the world we live in.
Yeah,
That's the world we live in.
And I fully understand why people don't go against that, because it took me quite a while to go against that. I messaged a good friend of mine the other day after the conference, Shabnam Raja, back on season 2. Everyone check out her episode. She's awesome. And I told her, I says, look, you'll love this. I've just stood in front of about 60 or 70 people presenting. And she's like, Terry, when I first spoke to you, you wouldn't even comment on a fucking post. And it's those baby steps. So I do think that's a big part of it. But I do want to ask you a question, and I will not take offense at the answer. I want you to be honest with this, and I'm putting myself slightly out there for this.
Oh,
How's
God.
my social media?
Okay, Terry.
No.
No, actually,
Edit.
I started following you. I started following you a long time ago because I liked what you did. I like your social media. It's a very clear brand. It's a clear message. And I said this, I cannot tell you how many times I said this over the weekend, and to the point where I was like, Laura, shut up. Everyone's going to hate you. There needs to be, like, I only met you on Sunday and I already feel like I know you. And I already feel like I like you. I do not, and your podcasts are great, and I only listen to your podcast because I found social media and I liked it. But I think I don't think your social media, because there's not enough of you on there, I don't think it's enough to necessarily bring somebody over to the podcast. It's something like oh my God, it's been a long time since I've talked about this, but it's something like 7 to 13 touch points before somebody buys me. You know a little bit about this, don't you? And your social media just needs to be busier, and you just need to have more of you on it. And I know that that's a bit of an issue for you because you are an introvert, but to be quite frank with you, you have a podcast. So as much as you might be an introvert, you are now selling something that people have to buy into, and what they're buying into is you. So if you are not present on your marketing, they're not going to know how amazing you are, and so they're not necessarily going to take that step to go, I'm going to listen to this podcast. And then you've lost a lead. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fascinating because you are 100% right. And if you were to go back through and this is what we're going to come back to the conference in a minute, guys, I promise. But if you were to go back through my social media, particularly Facebook, because I haven't been as active on the other channels, but you would see that towards the end of 2021, I got a bit of a kick up the arse from people saying exactly what you've just said to me. So I start putting myself out there more on that side of it. And then 2022 happened and that just stopped. Mm-hmm. And now I'm getting more back into that. And I'm going to be genuinely fascinated to see where I am in, 12 months' time with that. And, it's just going to be interesting to see where I'm going forward. But, and yes, maybe we'll add that onto the conversation when I stop recording as well. But either way, I want to bring back to the conference for a minute because you were talking about networking there. And I think a lot of instructors don't see the relevance of that. They don't necessarily know what networking is. So I'm going to throw that over to you a little bit. What's the importance? What the benefits of actually networking?
Well, first of all, I think it's a lonely job, is what I get from a lot of people. And in terms of, just to put it plain and simply, mental health, I think people don't understand what you do unless they do it as well. So if you spend however many hours in a car every day, and you could be part of a massive driving school but still feel very lonely because you haven't got your mate sat next to you in the office to have a bit of should we have a cup of tea or whatever. It's just you. And obviously you meet a lot of people, but they're not your colleagues, they are your customer. And I think networking pulls you into a place where there are other people who know what you do, understand why you do it most of the time, do the same thing, have similar experiences, have similar trauma. I remember, I know on your podcast, Chris talked about how a driving instructor went through something terrible and nobody really checked up on him or her, and Chris did. And I think when you're networking, you're kind of creating yourself a community of people who fully understand what you go through day to day in the car with students, and that you can go, I've had a tough one today and this is why. Or who can give you advice if you're not getting through to a learner, or who can validate you, because we all need validation. As Chris rightly said, we need validation. So if you have a network of people that you've met, that you've created connections with, that you've potentially gone out for beer with or a cup of coffee with or whatever, who you can go, oh, I've had this guy fail 5 times. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, cool. Let's talk through it. You can't do that with your wife or your husband or your best friend, because they don't know. And I think that's the most important thing. It's a lonely job. It can be shit for your mental health. If you've got people who get it, great. But also in terms of business, now at the moment, I know it's a bit different because everyone's got a waiting list, everybody. So it's not like we're crying out for business, but that's not always going to be the case. We're not always going to need that. I think the driving instructor industry is growing. I think a lot of young people are coming into it where they haven't before. And I think networking with people means that if you are struggling to find business and you have someone in your area who you have a developed relationship with that you have built through networking, you can go to them and go, do you have any students? Do you have anything that you can help me with? And they can help you. You don't have that if you've never met someone before. If someone messaged me and said, Laura, I need some help. I need some advice on my social media for free, I'd be like, no. Like, why would I don't know who you are. If you message me or you talk to me at the end of this because we've already got a relationship and you need some advice, I'm there fully. That's the difference. And I think networking is so underrated in every industry, because to create a community of people who get it and get you and can actually help you and benefit you, and vice versa, you can't pay for that.
I think I would agree wholeheartedly again. I think we're agreeing too much today. We need to find someone to disagree on.
So boring. Argue with me, Terry.
Anyone that hasn't, go back and listen to the Green Room episode that I recorded live at Kempton, because I said it on there about this podcast probably wouldn't be a thing if I hadn't spoken to Bob Morton and Chris Benstead. They were the two people that I specifically sought out. Not necessarily for promotion or anything like that, but they helped me reach new people. And I think that this podcast grew from that. If I'd have just stayed in my own little network without reaching out to new people, then that wouldn't have happened. But I want to finish up with the question of CPD, because we were speaking a little bit before we hit record today, and I found your thoughts on it again very similar to mine, but I thought I liked the way you spoke about it. So just give me your perspective of CPD and potentially the way it's treated in our industry.
Okay, so I can't remember quite what I said, and I was so articulate then, but now I'm on the spot. I can't. But what I would say is, from my own experience in other industries, continued professional development is so vital. But here, when you are in charge of making sure that somebody is safely in charge of a vehicle, a 1-ton thing that moves really quick and can do considerable damage to human life and property, the idea that you don't want to do that to the absolute best of your ability blows my mind. I hadn't thought until I listened to your podcast that anybody on this earth would become a driving instructor to make sure someone can tick some boxes on a day and then say, off you go, good luck, don't run over anybody. To me, you're in this industry because you, as I said to you earlier, it's a massive privilege to be that heavily involved in a massive milestone in someone's life. That's something that really draws me to the industry. So to not want to do that so that you can safely know that you've done that to the absolute best of your ability and that person is going to drive well and safely for the rest of their lives. If you're not, why are you in this industry if you're not doing that? Why are you in this industry if you are just making sure that they pass? And the thing that really, really got to me was the whole concept of what Chris was saying about the bare minimum. There shouldn't be a bare minimum. When it comes to teaching someone to drive, you should be expert enough and up to date enough with everything on the roads to be able to impart that knowledge well to somebody else that is then going to be out on the roads. That shouldn't be questionable. I understand the concept of having to pay for continued professional development is tricky because we don't all have a lot of money. But the other thing that Chris said was there's a lot of free stuff out there that isn't accessed either. I just think it shouldn't be a question. If you have any kind of conscience, you should always be working to the next thing. I don't really understand the whole audit trainer thing because I'm so new to the industry. I don't understand the fleet trainer thing, where that comes in terms of being better at your job. But how I see it is, student drivers go on to take the Pass Plus because they want to be the best they can be at driving, or because they need to be able to do better for themselves to make sure that they feel safe. But we should driving instructors should just be doing that as standard. I can't tell you how I feel about whether you should pay for it or not. I mean, if you want to do a master's degree to make you better and to make you more attractive to potential clients, you pay for it. If you want to learn to be a driving instructor, you pay for it, but you don't pay half as much as you pay if you go off and do a degree. I'm in £25,000 worth of debt because I did a degree, and I got accepted for a master's degree, but it's going to cost me £15,000. If I can afford to do it, I'd do it, and I wouldn't question it because it's going to make my future prospects better. And I think a whole other conversation is then how does that reflect in what we earn? I understand why that's a bit of a sticky one, because can you charge more and just say, well, hey, though, I've got all this stuff, I've got all these letters after my name, whatever, because are you then potentially losing custom because you're more, that is a tricky one, but that's the same. You go to your hairdressers, you get a junior stylist or you get the top dog, you pay a lot different for the top dog than for the junior stylist. They both do the same job, they just do it for different, I don't know. I just feel like we're literally in charge of lives here.
But I think, again, I agree with what you're saying regarding the paying for stuff. I'm always skeptical over this because I think there's probably enough out there in the industry that is free that you can probably get by without paying for stuff if you wanted to. I think I made the point recently that, again, I'll use this podcast as an example. It's an easy example for me to use, that you could listen to this podcast, listen to everyone that speaks in it over the course of 6 months and go, right, I want to work with that person. So you're using this to gain knowledge, information and inspiration is what I say, and then find out who else you want to work with, whether that's me or you or Bob Morton or whoever is irrelevant. But you can use this as like a filler. But in terms of it costing too much, there is some expensive stuff out there. Sometimes you have to take a step back and go, do you know what? I'm going to have to do that next year and I'm going to save up for it. Alternatively, again, example of mine, if you increased your prices by about 20 pence an hour, that would cover the cost of the Instructor Podcast Premium easily on a month basis. I don't think any students are going to complain about a 20 pence an hour pricing. Well, they probably would because it's 20p, but not in terms of the cost increase. And that's not me telling people to come to me. That's just, you put your price up by £1 an hour, you've covered your CPD for a year. Yeah. Easy as that. But it's interesting what you say. Is there anything else you want to touch on today, do you think, before I take you away from this platform?
We don't have enough time on earth for me to touch. Just from that one podcast, I think that there's just so much up for debate. This is such an interesting industry to be in at this moment in time. And I said this to you when we spoke yesterday. I think slowly but surely it's becoming more diverse. I think it's becoming younger. I think it's people looking at it through fresh eyes, but there's just so much more that and that's the collective we, that's the people listening to this podcast, that's the people from the Intelligent Instructor guys, that's the people who have apps, that we could be doing to make it more accessible to potential drivers, to make it safer, to make it more fun. There's just so much. And I don't think that right now is the time, for that conversation.
Well, we'll finish on this because I did forget to tell you I was going to ask you this. So again, I'm putting you on the spot, so apologies. But at the end of every episode, I like to ask someone for their ultimate driving song. So kind of like to the Instructor Podcast Spotify playlist. So what would be your ultimate driving song?
Okay, this is going to be really out there, and it's quite a new song into my life, and it's called Little Girl Run by an artist called Chinchilla, and it's the best female rage anthem I've ever heard in my 36 years on earth. And if I'm ever feeling anxious about a situation, I put that on full blast, scream at the top of my lungs while driving safely and making all the correct observations, and nothing puts me in a better mood than that song. So it's going to be a mix that probably will be mostly disliked, but can't win them all.
Not heard it, but it's quite an eclectic mix over there anyway, so we'll add it to that. Do you want to just tell people where they can find you if they want more Laura goodness?
So I am on Instagram, mainly on Instagram, at Laura MBJ, I think. I'm going to go with that. I changed it recently and couldn't change it back. So, but I'm also on Get Wheel Driving on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok with my amazing instructor, Roland, who I'll tell you about another time.
Well, people can find the links for that stuff in the show notes anyway. But yeah, a big thank you for joining us today.
No, thank you for having me. And I look forward to speaking to you soon.
And in just a moment, we're going to be back with some very special interviews from people that I spoke to at the conference, including Francis from Driving School TV and Kit Magazine. But just before we dive into that, first of all, big thank you to Laura Joyce. It was really interesting hearing the PDI perspective on things like networking and personal development, even in the instructor industry as a whole. So, really interesting conversation there. And I just want to give a quick shout out to the latest sign-ups to the Instructor Podcast Premium, and they are Elizabeth Price, Katie Dunkerley, Paul Blood, Kevin Dias, and Sharon Houghton. Now, these guys have immediate access to a wealth of content with almost 100 exclusive shows available just for my premium members, covering things on coaching and the standards check and managing nerves, building confidence, and even looking at how we can run better driving schools. If you would like to sign up, head over to www.theinstructorpodcast.com or check out the show notes for links over there, or alternatively, drop me a message. I'm easy enough to find. For now, let's see what these guys got to say. So we're now joined by the Francis from Driving School TV. How are you doing, Francis?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
All the better for seeing your smiley face. How many of these events have you been to now?
We've been to quite a lot now. We've been to the last 3 or 4. So we came to the first Kempton Park Raceway last year, and it was actually really good. It's a smaller venue, feels a bit more intimate, so you can really communicate and talk to people a little bit more. The Coventry ones are obviously the main focus of the year, and it's always really good with the size of the venue and the amount of people that turn up. So you can get a lot out of the Coventry venue. But I really like the intimacy of Kempton Park Raceway, and look at the scenery we've got here as well.
I noticed that, so coming, I wasn't a fan of the queue to get in. When we got in it, we're all good. But just tell us a bit, well, in fact, I'll ask you about that a bit more. So since you've been coming the last 3 or 4 years, like you said, have you noticed growth in this, or a change of people, or are you seeing the same people? Or
it is nice to see people that have come before and they go, I've seen you before and seen your talk and I really like what you do. Or they've seen our YouTube content, which is obviously really nice. Because we help their learners and they appreciate it. So it's really nice to see people, especially the ones that we've seen before, but it's also good to network with new people and new faces.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to ask you about that actually, because you said there about people coming up and they've seen you on YouTube, they've seen you on TikTok, whatever. How does that feel? Because I'm feeling it a little bit this year with people coming, you're Terry from the podcast.
You. Yeah, awesome.
How does that feel when people do that?
At first it was weird. At first it made me really shy, I'll be honest. And I'll feel like the ground needs to swallow me up immediately, but I've got used to it. And it's a really nice feeling that people appreciate what you do and appreciate what you bring.
And everyone's lovely, aren't they?
For the most part, yes. For the most part.
I like that.
All but one just didn't appreciate my driving style, but can't please everybody.
All right, well, you mentioned there about Driving School TV. Just tell us a little bit about that, where people can find you, what you do, that sort of stuff.
We're at Driving School TV on every social, the main socials that young people are on, because we mainly target our content to learner drivers. So we're on TikTok, we're quite big on TikTok, Instagram. YouTube's our main platform where we promote all of our fun and educational content. So at Driving School TV on everything.
Yeah, smashing. All right, well, thank you for taking some time for us today.
Awesome, Terry. Also, do you know what? We've been talking for so long. This is the point of the expos. This is why they're so awesome, because you can actually connect with people that you've been talking to on maybe social media, and it's been so nice to see you. Thank you.
Well, it's an audio, not video, but do we need a hug? I think we need a hug.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
You can definitely feel that hug on the microphone there, can't you?
All right, so we're now joined by Michelle from My Drive Time. How are we doing, Michelle?
Great, thanks.
Excellent. We are at the Intelligent Instructor conference in Kempton. You having a good day so far?
Yeah, it's been really busy. Yeah, it's been lovely to meet people.
You sort of come to these quite a lot. How will you find this in comparison to the others? Does it sort of feel the same old, same old? I don't mean in a bad way, but...
I'm seeing new faces. I think it's nice to have the expos in different locations, because you do see different people each time. Yeah. I
must admit, I'm looking forward to it coming a bit more up north.
Yeah.
But, all right, so you're obviously in My Drive Time. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your role there?
My job title is I'm the technical director, so I'm basically part of the development team. There's three of us who work on development, and I focus mainly on the database side of things, on the back end, so keeping it all stable, making sure everything works properly.
Yeah. We've had Dan on before, and I think we were talking before, and I made the statement, not you, that you do all the work and he takes all the credit. Is that pretty much where you're at?
Well, Dan wouldn't say that, but...
He won't listen, it's fine. All right, so just tell us a little bit about My Drive Time, and especially My Drive Time 2.0, where you're at now.
Yeah, so My Drive Time, we launched in 2014. I think we were pretty much the first to launch this kind of system for ADIs. And in all that time, 9 years, we've had so much feedback on what people want in a system like this. And My Drive Time 2 basically answers all those questions.
So what are some of the features you've introduced?
We've got a really great customizable reflective log feature. We are doing journey tracking, so you can use a GPS on your phone to record the routes that you're travelling with your students and share all of that information. We've got a standards check indicator report to help you see where you might be able to improve with certain aspects of where where your students are maybe falling down in their tests. You can use that to sort of pick up.
Awesome. And if people want to find out more about My Drive Time, where can they go?
Yeah, go to mydrivetime.co.uk, start a free trial.
Smashing. Okay, well, thank you for your time today. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Lovely to meet you.
So, I am now joined by another esteemed guest. Do you want to introduce yourself to tell people where you're from and what you do?
Yeah, okay, so it's Alan Hiscox, and I am the Director of Safety with the British Horse Society.
What does that role entail?
Okay, well, we're the largest equine charity in the UK, but our safety team is all to do with it's a one-stop shop for anything for horses or carriage drivers or riders to come and talk to about us. But 90% of our work is all about incidents on the roads with horses or carriage drivers where vehicles are passing too fast or too close. 69 horses were killed on the roads last year, 139 injured, 125 riders injured. So it is really a serious issue for all equestrians.
I mean, I don't want to get too deep into this now, but is that on the rise? Is it getting better? Do you think the awareness is helping?
Well, there was the highway code changes that came in January last year, and we saw a dip of about 20% whilst the publicity was there for the highway code changes. Now that has all sort of died away, incidents have started to rise again. So last year there was a 20% increase in incidents. So the work that the DFT did to get those highway code changes in really did have an effect on the safety for horse riders. But now that sort of publicity behind those changes are gone, we are seeing that increase again. So our role is really to try and get those messages out to drivers.
And just to put you on the spot a little bit, because this is going out to driving instructors, so for anyone listening now, what one tip or one piece of advice would you give to driving instructors?
Okay, so our dead slow messages are in the highway code. If you see a horse on the road, slow down to a maximum of 10 miles an hour, don't sound your horn or rev your engine, pass wide and slow at least 2 metres and drive slowly away. And I know driving instructors will be teaching those messages, but the way that horses can react sometimes is not known to the driver or the driving instructor. They are flight animals, they can move incredibly swiftly, and they've got incredible eyesight. So all those messages that are in the highway code actually mean that safe passes to horses will happen nearly all the time.
Awesome. And we're at Kempton. How are you finding the event today?
Great. We've had some great exchanges with driving instructors and information. We've got a lot of resources that driving instructors can use for their learner drivers about how to pass horses safely. So yeah, it's been a really good sort of interactive event for us.
And where can people find you? So if they want to access those resources, where can they find you?
Yeah, our website is bhs.org.uk, and Alan Hiscox or Des Payne are in the safety team. So yeah, please give us a shout. Smashing.
Last question, and I'm asking this to you specifically out of curiosity. We are at Kempton, as we said.
Yeah.
So horse racing, what's your stand on horse racing?
Well, obviously there are some issues around horse racing, but I have ridden out from some stables, and the way that those horses are treated is second to none. So I know that there is absolutely every care and attention taken for horses and racehorses. So there's a lot of people involved in horse racing, and I know that they care for the welfare of those horses absolutely utmost.
Smashing. Well, thank you for your time today. It's very much appreciated.
Okay.
And you'll notice it's now silence because we're in the secret room with Richard Stars. How are we doing, Richard?
Very well, thank you, Terry. Very well.
I want to ask you, first of all, this event here at Kempton today, how are you feeling about this one? How do you think it's gone sort of on its own and in comparison to the other ones you've done?
I think it's gone well. We're approaching, we're close to the end. We've got the DVSA to look forward to at 3 o'clock. So I think a lot of people have had a very busy day. I've been here since 6 this morning, so it feels a particularly long day, but I'm come up for a cup of tea in the green room and a bit of sugar rush. But I think it's gone well. I think we don't know the final numbers of delegates, but we're looking at probably 20% up year on year since we ran this event last year. The weather's been kind, which is good for the guys outside in the EV display and the outdoor activity area. Seminars seem to be well attended, which is great. And we'll be sending out surveys to all delegates and exhibitors to get their real feedback this evening.
And you come up here for your piece and quiet and you got jumped by me, so apologies for that. But are we back next year?
I think we are going to. We'll look at the feedback. It's been very positive so far. So if there's appetite in the industry to have an event in the south, then absolutely we'll be back here.
Yeah, and just a quick one on the PDI zone, because that was sort of new this year, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a new idea because what we wanted to do is try and get instructors fresh into the industry along to our event. They've probably got the most to learn. So yeah, that's been really popular, and so potentially next year we might look at having a bigger area for that PDI zone, because all the talks that we've had today, one's going on with Lou Walsh, who's been kindly hosting the event today for us in that area. It seems to be really, really popular with, standing room only in every session that we've run today.
Yep, it did look popular from me being around there, and I think it's a really good idea, because I don't think there is anything like that for PDIs in particular. So really impressed with that. But I won't hold you anymore because you've got a cup of tea going cold.
That's all right. No worries. But thank you for doing the podcast as well and putting the effort in coming here today. So we really appreciate that as well.
Thank you for asking me. It's always a pleasure.
All right, thank you.
So now joined by Lee Jowett again. You were on the last one of these I did. How are we doing, Lee?
Yeah, I'm good, Terry. Nice to see you. Good to see you again.
So the last time I recorded one of these would have been in 2021 at the Expo.
Yeah, it was in Coventry, wasn't it?
Yeah. What's changed for you since then, Lee?
Well, I think since then, me and Mick Knowles have started our company. We go up and down the country delivering training. So my weeks have got busier, spend less time at home, spend less time with wife, kids, miss me dog more. But good stuff, all good stuff. Things are going in the direction that we want them to, just like yourself.
You mentioned the company. You want to tell everyone what that is?
Yes, Knowledgeable Instructor Training, which breaks down into Mick Knowles, and the end bit is Lee for Lee Jowett. So if anyone thinks we've actually spelt it wrong, it is on purpose. It's not. It's not my grammar, which is poor enough.
But Kit for short.
Kit for short, and Kit Mag. So those that are aware of Kit Mag, we've got nearly 1,500 subscribers now. Free eMag. Sign up to it if you've not already done so via our website, www.adikit.co.uk. Free monthly eMag with all kinds of CPD from some of the best trainers in the industry. And we feature some of the best people in the industry, like Terry Cook, from time to time.
I've heard he's half decent, so definitely check that out. But I mentioned before about seeing you first at Expo in 2021. What are your thoughts on it and how it's developed over the years?
It's nice to see a lot of people. It's nice to see a lot of driving instructors come out, get in the car and be interested and want to learn. I got here at 11:30 today because I thought, well, I'll stay in Warwick, an hour's drive away, and get up nice and early in the morning. And Mick woke me up at 9:15 to say that he was already here, and I was still an hour and 15 minutes away. But when I got to the car park, I was just like, wow, lots of people.
Yeah.
So it's good to see. I think there's a lot of good speakers. There's a lot of people that I'd like to have seen but I've missed. I missed you, missed Ray, missed Kev Tracey, but loads of great speakers. Bob, I missed Bob. Yeah, loads and loads. So, but good to see people, a lot of familiar faces, and a good day.
New faces as well, I think, this year, which is great. But I just want to ask you about, just briefly, the PDI zone, which was new this year. And I think that's a great idea. And it's been great to see that packed as well.
It is packed into, and such a busy time for PDIs coming into the industry, and such a good time for them to come into the industry. I totally agree with you. What a great idea that is to have a PDI zone, and some, that people can come that are just starting their journey, their process. I'd have loved something like that when I was training. There's nothing. There's more and more. There's your content and the likes of Bob and Chris and. And then we've got Kit Mag and the people that are writing for us, and these are free resources. It's fantastic.
All right. Lastly, I just want to remind people where they can find you.
They can find us on Facebook. They can find our website, www.adikit.co.uk, the Kit Podcast, and also Meet the Standards, my ebooks. So if there are any PDIs listening that want some more help and support with their standards check in Part 3, then you can download them on the new driver program website.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time today.
No worries, Terry. Good to see you.
I'm now joined by the other Kit member. Kit, what's the word I'm looking for?
Member.
Founder. Yes, member.
Doesn't sound
Kit
right.
founder. How are we doing, Mick?
Yeah, good, thanks, good.
Excellent. All the better for seeing your smiley face.
I've tried to keep smiling as much as I can.
How are you finding the conference this year?
Yeah, good. Obviously, we've just been presenting on it, but yeah, it's good. It's the first time I've been down to Kempton. I've done Coventry when it was there a couple of times, but yeah, it's good. It's a lot of familiar faces, but also a lot of new faces as well.
What do you think of it in comparison to the Coventry one, the bigger expo one?
Coventry to me it just seemed, I don't know, seemed to be a lot more there.
Yeah.
But when I turned up this morning, I thought, wow, there's loads of cars. But you haven't had that sort of crush walking around the stands. But that's probably because there's 3 large rooms on and there's plenty of people in them all the time. So you're not sort of fighting your way through the crowds, but there's still a lot of people here.
I was talking to Francis from Driving Truck TV before, and he said it feels more intimate. He says you get to have more conversations.
Yes,
which, there's pluses and minuses to both. But I did ask Lee, but I'm going to ask you as well. How's Kit going?
Very good, very good. Busy. We've had an awesome week. Aberdeen, Edinburgh, Manchester, and now we're down there in London. So it's been a busy week. I left home on Sunday, got back late Tuesday, out on Friday, left this morning, and hopefully get back for my tea tonight, maybe.
Well, wherever you than me. Okay, cool. In fact, I do want to ask you one last question. How important is it the way that instructors wear suits and shirts and ties?
We actually spoke about this morning, didn't we? So, how important is it? Well, does it make me a better instructor? Does it make me deliver better training if I'm wearing jeans and trousers, jeans and trainers? Or am I going to say exactly the same thing if I'm wearing a suit? So no, it doesn't. There's no difference.
Right, well, thanks for your time today, Mick. It's much appreciated.
Cheers, mate.
The Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.